Welcome to lesson. Today we learn about articles, countable and uncountable nouns, and quantifiers. First, we will begin with articles. We generally don't use any article when talking about something in general, like teachers, university, education, etc. There is no specific thing in examples, so we don't need an article. Also, before countries and towns, there is no need for articles. For example, in Spain, in Şirince, in Turkey. Let's continue with definite article the. If you refer something that mentioned before or a name explained with relative clause, you need definite article. It implies specific thing we mentioned before in sentence. For example, I bought a jacket yesterday. The jacket cost too much, but... In sentence, subject don't talk about any jacket. The jacket subject mentioned is the one he/she bought yesterday. That's why subject use definite article to point out this. Another example, the jacket I bought yesterday cost too much. In second example, the definite article is used with relative clause. Again, the jacket mentioned in the sentence is not any jacket. The is used to indicate that. We use definite article with ordinal numbers, like the first, the second, the third, the fourth, etc. When talking about something unique or specific, we use definite article, like the sun, the earth. If your sentence includes superlative forms of adjectives, you have to use definite article. For example, the most or the best. Best is superlative form of good, and when we use in the sentence, we have to use with definite article. But you can't use this definite article when a possessive comes before superlative, like my best friend or Turkey's biggest city. Also, we use definite article when the singular names describes a class while generalizing a group. As you can see in the example, the cat is generalizing a class. The cat is a wild animal. So, we use this definite article with singular name. We use definite article before country names when it includes republic, states, kingdom, empire, etc. For example, the Ottoman Empire or United Kingdom. Finally, when talking about a period in history, we use definite article before the name of periodical events, like the French Revolution or the Magna Carta. Indefinite article a, an. If the word starts with a consonant, we use a, but if it starts with a vowel, we use an. We generally use indefinite articles when mention something for the first time or refer to any one of a kind of group. For example, she is an accountant. In the sentence, she is just an accountant. There is not specific situation in the sentence, so we use a or an. Also, we can use an when indicating amount of something. These apples 5 liras a kilo. In the sentence, indefinite article came before kilo. It means 1 kilo. Instead of 1, we use a before the kilo. We use indefinite articles when uncountable nouns to make countable, like a glass of water or a slice of bread. As you can see, water or bread is not countable nouns. So when we say a glass of water or a slice of bread, we make them countable nouns. We also use an with million, billion, dozen, etc. to in the meaning of one, a score of people or a dozen eggs. Another thing about these indefinite articles, it is important use of an in sentences. Let's look at the examples. Duygu has a blue and orange sweatshirt. In the first example, the subject talking about two sweatshirts, which has one color. But the second sentence, Duygu has a blue and orange sweatshirt. The subject talking about one sweatshirt, which has two colors. In two sentences, indefinite articles is used in two different ways and each of them implies different meanings. Now, let's continue with quantifiers. We use quantifiers when we want to give information about the number of something, how much or how many. Sometimes we can use quantifier in the place of determiner. For example, most children start school at the age of 5. Most is used in the place of determiner in the sentence. Quantifiers, which can be used both countable and uncountable nouns. These are some of them: all, some, more, a lot of, enough, no, any, most, lots of, less. Let's look at examples. We have lots of time, or there was a lot of food but no drinks. In the first sentence, time is uncountable noun and we use lots of with time because we can use lots of both countable and uncountable nouns. These are more colloquial forms of also used with both countable and uncountable nouns. Plenty of, heaps of, a lot of, lots of, tons of. For example, there was heaps of desserts, or Joe has plenty of friends. In the first sentence, desserts is uncountable noun, but we can use heaps of with uncountable nouns. And friends is countable noun, and we can use plenty of with friend because it's countable. These quantifiers both can be used countable and uncountable nouns. We normally don't use some in negative and question sentences. Instead, we use any. Do you have any faith in me? Or we saw some lions at the zoo. The first example is question sentence. So, we use any instead of some. In second example, as you can see, it's a positive sentence. So, we use some in this example. But we can use some for offer or requests. Would you like some tea? Or I want some apple, please. As you can see, the first sentence it's question, but it is offer, so we use some in the sentence. Quantifiers with countable nouns. These are some of quantifiers which only can be used with countable nouns. Not many or many, each, either, a few, several, both, neither, and fewer. For example, there is few apple for the pie. Apple is countable noun and as you can see, few is used with apple. And these are more popular forms are used with countable nouns. A couple of, hundreds of, or thousands of. Like, she will be back in a couple of minutes. Quantifiers with uncountable nouns. These are some of the quantifiers which only can be used with uncountable nouns. Not much or much, a bit of or a little. For example, would you like a little wine? Wine is uncountable noun, so we use a little with this noun. These quantifiers are used especially with abstract nouns such as time, money, and trouble. A great deal of or a good deal of. For example, they have a great deal of money for this job. In the sentence, money is uncountable noun because it's too general. If you talk about euro or dollar or Turkish lira, yes, it is countable noun, but when talking about money, it is uncountable. Like I said, it is too general. Members of groups. We put a noun directly after a quantifier when we are talking about members of a group in general. Few snakes are dangerous or most children like desserts. But if you are talking about members of a specific group, we use of the as well. Like, a few of the snakes in the zoo are dangerous, or most of the boys at my school loves basketball. Both, either, and neither. If we are talking about two people or things, we use the quantifiers both, either and neither. Let's look at the examples. The supermarket was closed. Both the supermarket was open. As you can see in the second column, both is used for two things in the sentence. None of the supermarkets were open. The supermarket was not open. Neither of the supermarkets was open. Again, in the example, it's talking about two things. None of the supermarkets were open. I don't think the supermarket was open. I don't think either of the supermarkets was open. Like the other examples, in this sentence, either is used for two things or two people. As we said before, generally in negative sentences, any is used. And this example, the subject used any for negative sentence. It is important to note that nouns with both have plural verbs, but nouns with either and neither have singular verbs. Every and each. We use the quantifiers every and each with singular nouns to mean all. There was a party in every street. There were parties in all streets. Or each child was given a prize. All the children were given a prize. Every and each used in the meaning of all in these examples. We often use every to talk about times like days, weeks, and years. For example, when we were children, we had holidays at our grandmother's every year. As it's said in the rule, every is used with year in the sentence. We do not use a determiner with every and each. Like every shop was decorated with flowers. Not the every shop. You can use determiners with every and each. Be careful about that. It's grammatically not correct. And now we continue with countable and uncountable nouns. Nouns can be countable or uncountable. Countable nouns can be counted like an apple, two apples, or three apples, etc. But uncountable nouns cannot be counted. For example, air, rice, water, or bread, etc. When you learn a new noun, you should check if it is countable or uncountable and note how it is used in a sentence. First, we will look at countable nouns. For positive sentences, we can use a or an for singular nouns or some for plurals. For example, I have a friend in London, or she has some apples and oranges in her basket. In the first example, a is used with singular countable noun, as said in the rule. And in the second example, some is used with plural countable nouns. For negatives, we can use a or an for singular nouns or any for plurals. I don't have a cat. Cat is singular noun and countable noun, so we use a or an. But if it is plural countable nouns, we will use any with this noun. Uncountable nouns. Here are some examples of uncountable nouns: coffee, bread, information, money, furniture, advice, rice, luggage, etc. Bread, money, and furniture is too general to be countable nouns. If you are use money with a quantifiers, you should be careful because money is uncountable noun and you can use quantifiers only can be used with uncountable nouns. But if you're talking about dollar or Turkish lira or euro or like that, you can use quantifiers with only can be used countable nouns. Bread and furniture is same with money. We use some uncountable nouns in positive sentences and any with negatives. For example, there is some milk in the fridge, or there isn't any coffee. Questions. In questions, we use a or an, any or how many with countable nouns. For example, is there an email address to write to, or how many chairs are there, or are there any cup? And we use any or how much with uncountable nouns. Like, is there any salt or how much cherry juice is there? We should point out that if you want to make a question with how, you should how many with countable nouns and how much with uncountable nouns. But when we are offering something or asking for something, we normally use some. Do you want some chocolates? In the example, subject is offering something to somebody, so he or she use some in the sentence. We also use some in a question when we think the answer will be yes. For example, have you got some new glasses? In the example, subject knows that the answer will be yes, so he or she use some in the sentence. And finally, use of a few, very little, and a bit of. A few and a bit of or a little means some. Often we feel this amount is enough or more than we expected. We use a few with plural nouns and a bit of or a little with countable nouns. For example, I have a few ideas, or there is a bit of milk left. In the examples, a few and a bit of used with uncountable nouns, but more importantly, we can understand from these sentences the amount is enough or more than expected. On the other hand, we use few and very little to show that we are talking about a small amount. Often we feel this amount is not enough or less than expected. Few is for countable nouns and very little is for uncountable nouns. For example, few people came to the meeting, or we have very little time. Few is used with countable noun and very little is used with uncountable noun. Again, in this example, we can assume that the amount is not enough or less than expected by looking at the quantifiers. And also, you can use little without very, but it is less common and so on, quite formal. And this is the last topic in this video. I hope you understood all the things I tried to explain, and I hope it helps in your lessons or homework. Stay safe and stay healthy.